In this lesson, we're going to be talking about banner grabbing. A banner is any message that an application provides. In the case of networked applications, which is primarily where we would be doing banner grabbing, a networked application would spit back a message, sometimes indicating the type of service that is actually running on that particular port on that server. In this case, I'm connecting to port 22 on my network, and port 22 is the SSH port. Now you can see that I'm running SSH 2.0 OpenSSH version 5.9 patch 1 on a Debian Ubuntu system. So this particular application has provided us a lot of useful information, which is of course the point of doing banner grabbing to begin with. You would do banner grabbing in order to figure out not only the type of application, which in most cases you could get from the port number. For example, if you connect to something on port 80, you can be reasonably sure that you are going to be getting a web server that responds to you on that particular port. Not always the case, but that's why we call them well-known port numbers. Now you can see that I used the application Telnet. Now, Telnet has a client component and a server component. And the server component is used to provide console access to remote users. The client can be used to connect to systems running Telnet as a server. However, it's also a good application for just simply doing a TCP connection. And as I did earlier, I'm going to connect back to this particular system. You can see I'm connecting to a host. That's the 192.168.1.39, and that's on port 22. Now, if I took that port number off, it would default to port 23, which is the Telnet port. I'm going to do 22 in this case, though, and that gives me my SSH connection. Now, I can do this on a number of different systems or different service ports. For example, I could do this to the web port. So in this case, I'm just typing raw HTTP, and I'm getting a message back. And if I scrolled up here, I could get the server name and version. In this case, it's Apache running 2.2.22 on a Ubuntu server. So again, we've got some information about a particular service that's running on a particular port. So Telnet, again, is really good for connecting to systems that are running TCP. And you can connect to particular ports and interact with them manually because, again, Telnet's a console application. Telnet is also available on pretty much any system that's running TCP/IP. Now, current versions of Windows, you have to go through a few extra steps in order to get the Telnet client installed. But it's pretty easy. You just go to the Programs control panel and you go to Add or Remove Windows Features, and you can go find the Telnet client and just add the client there. In this case, I'm running this on a Mac OS system, available for Linux. Like I said, pretty much any system running TCP/IP, you can find a Telnet client for. So it's pretty ubiquitous, and therefore it's pretty good to use for these types of banner grabbing applications. I can also use a utility called netcat, and I'm running that here. NC is netcat, and I'm doing -v for verbose, and I'm actually going to connect to infiniteskills.com, and we're going to connect to the web server. So I got my connection, it succeeded, it says on port 80, TCP, HTTP. In this case, I'm going to do a head rather than a get. And I'm using version 1.1 of the HTTP protocol, which means I have to specify a host. And then hit enter again, and it's running Apache version 2.2.3 on a Red Hat server. And it's running some different modules here. So again, you can see where we can get all sorts of useful information. Sometimes it's useful to be able to connect to mail services or mail service ports and figure out the type of mail server that is running there. So in this case, I want to figure out what the mail server is. So I'm going to go back to our old friend Dig. I'm going to do digmx, and I'm going to do microsoft.com. And here it's mail.messaging.microsoft.com. I can see in my answer section. So I am going to mail.messaging.microsoft.com, and I'm going to connect to the SMTP port or the mail port here. And you can see I've got a connection that succeeded. Now you can see it's responded. It's the Microsoft eSMTP mail service ready. So that tells me that they're running the Microsoft SMTP server, which is probably Exchange. So I can also do another one here, digmx for sendmail.org, and sendmail is a different type of mail server. So I can connect to services.sendmail.com, and that again is on port 25. Now I've got my connection, and you can see I've connected to a server running SendMail 8.14.5. So again, I've got some useful information there about not only the service, in this case a SendMail application, but also the version number. So this is all well and good for clear text protocols like we've been using so far, HTTP, SMTP. SSH is a protocol that has encryption as part of it, but the banner I got back just simply from connecting to the service, which didn't require encryption. So we want to know how we are going to connect to systems that are using encryption, so web services, for example, that have encryption as part of them. So I can use the OpenSSL program, and the component that I'm going to use is the secure client. I'm going to tell that to connect to infiniteskills.com, and that's going to be on port 443, which is, of course, the HTTPS port. So it's going through the SSL handshake. It's giving me information about the negotiation that happened. The server public key is 2048 bits, and I'm doing TLS version 1, SSL version 3. The cipher is DHE RSA AES 256. So pretty strong cipher there. So not only am I going to get information about the service here, but I've also got some information about their encryption capabilities as well as the type of certificate that they're using. I'm doing a TLS version 1 protocol. Again, it's got the cipher there, and I've got information about the master key. And again, I'm going to plug in the host information. And same thing here because it's the same server. Apache 2.2.3 running on a Red Hat system. And I've also got some information here about the PHP version. So they're running PHP as a scripting language. That's a plugin that's being used with Apache, and I've got some version information about the PHP plugin that's being used. So you can see lots of different ways of pulling banners, whether it's encrypted protocols or unencrypted protocols. If you've got an encrypted protocol that you need to communicate with, you can use OpenSSL, and their S-client will do that protocol negotiation for you if it's SSL or TLS. So that's banner grabbing.